Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Good evening.
Greetings, race fans, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's presentation of the Radical Esports Cup. J.R. Gregory here with you on the call. Beside me in the commentary booth, racing Ron Mons, and in the production carrier, our friend and colleague, Joshua Wilkie. And the star of today's show, the Radical SR10, 425 horsepower, only 725 kilos, no traction control, no ABS. And folks, we are showing the top split of the public server today, 2100 GMT, as we do every Friday. This is not a league. This is not a private event. So if you would like to sign up for this and take these Radicals for a spin, you can do that anytime you want. And I'll tell you, mastering this car will make you better in every car that you drive. And our upcoming schedule is fantastic. Road America, Watkins Glen, Imola, Mount Panorama, Mosport, Barber, Sebring, and circle this, folks, Green Hell under the not lights, Green Hell at night, and what could possibly go wrong. But here we are today, round one of season 2 2024 at Laguna Seca, opened in 1957 in Monterey County, California, current host to IndyCar, IMSA, Road America, and Frivolous Lawsuits, past hosts, of course, to World Superbikes and numerous Rennsport reunion events. Our track length today, 3.6 clicks or 2.2 miles, 11 corners, and the current race lap record is a 108.4, set by Alex Palou last year in a DW12. So Ron, here we go. Season 1 is underway here. This Radical series has gotten increasingly better over the last couple of seasons, and they've put a lot of effort into attracting drivers and making this a better show and a better experience for folks, and they have largely succeeded. So here we are opening up a new season at Laguna Seca, and what are you looking forward to seeing here today out of this group?
Well, I'm really looking forward to the changes. Throughout all the changes that have happened with the Radical Esports Cup, a name change since it used to be the Radical Racing Challenge a few seasons ago, the different drivers that have come in and out of the series, everything that's gone on with this series, one thing has always remained the same. Laguna Seca has been a constant fixture of the schedule. It's been a track that we visited, I think, every single season since I started commentating this series full-time back in Season 2 of 2023. So over a year has passed, but we've run at this track basically basically every single season. It puts on some pretty good racing, but it's also a very challenging course for these cars. Usually expect long straightaways to play well to this car. Meanwhile, at Laguna Seca, you only have one really long, disproportionately long straightaway, and that is that start-finish straightaway with a little bend in the middle before you go into the Andretti hairpin. Another thing that I'm keeping my eyes on is the all-star cast of characters that we have right now. We have Aaron Baba at the front of the running order in this qualifying session right now. He tried to do some last to first challenges towards the end of last season. We'll see if he tries to carry that on here into season 2. We also have Kane Halliburton, a name that we haven't seen in a few seasons. He's currently running second in this qualifying session. An all-star cast of characters that we have here at this fantastic track that actually used to host IndyCar's version of the all-star race back in the 80s. So I think we're in for a pretty damn good race.
Yeah, absolutely. And all-star cast of characters. You are right about that. Baba, Halliburton, and Barry, all three past champions, season champions of the various iterations of this radical race. And to say nothing of Kyriakopoulos, Gonzaga, Ianni, and Halliburton particularly. Keep an eye on him. He has an 8.2K iRating, which is inhuman and inhumane at times. So we'll see what he is able to pull off. But Ron is right, folks. We have some of the best esports drivers, certainly some of the best radical drivers in the world here at our 2100 GMT Friday broadcast on Apex Racing TV, which is often the case. And here is Kyriakopoulos now. Looks like he's finishing up his second qualifying lap. Currently has a 118 flat posted. Is he able to improve on that? Looks like not. But qualifying's winding down there, and you see Baba Halliburton, Friedrich Berry, and Kyriakopoulos in the top 5 so far. Still looks like 3 cars on track. Gonzaga has a chance to improve, and Kadura, so we'll see what they're able to do here as the time winds down. And yeah, Laguna Seca, fantastic track for any car, but these sweeping bends really suit these radicals nicely. The only places that I would say the radicals might struggle is that downhill run into that tight turn 11 onto the front straight. They can be a little squirrely under braking and prone to lock up, so we'll have to keep an eye on them there. And right here at the top of the hill where we see Kyriakopoulos setting up for the corkscrew, you go over the crest of the hill under heavy braking. The car gets light there, and a really easy place to get a lock up there as well. And Kyriakopoulos, of course, a veteran with these cars and handling that one like a pro. But those are a couple of the trouble spots that I see potentially rearing their heads here.
I was actually driving this combination a little bit earlier today, and I will say from my experience, which was not at the speed that we're seeing these drivers go on, track limits was a big storyline. It was definitely one here in this qualifying session that has just wrapped up. I will say with this series being an official one, incident points may be a factor in this race. I believe 17 incident points is a limit. We may have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, they have improved that some over the years, particularly that turn 11 exit used to be where I would suffer and get all of my 1Xs, but they have improved that, added some pavement there, and also the run out of turn 6 has been widened somewhat, which has helped some of us who struggle with that blind left-hander. And qualifying is done now, and there is your starting grid. We'll run through that for you now. It is Baba next to Halliburton up front, a couple of aliens likely to drive away with this one. Behind them, Friedrich and Barry, Kyriakopoulos and Sanchez in row 3, Marco Weaver and Kjetil Larson in 7 and 8, Heinz Braun and Jorge Gonzaga there in 9 and 10, Marin and Myron Ianni there in 11 and 12. Then we'll move on to Anilan. Oh, that actually might be right. Anilan next to Kadura there in 13 and 14. Johannes Hesterman and Soren Jarretts will bring up the rear. So, oh, here we go. I'm super excited for this season. This series gets better and better every year, and super excited to get this one underway. And we're looking at Baba there, P1 on the grid. He will have the inside entry into the hairpin. And remember, folks, there is no pace lap, so we're going on dead cold tires from a standing start. No traction control, no ABS. So it requires mastery to get these things out the line. And we are green, and here is Baba. He is, of course, going to have the inside run into turn one, but he has got Halberton sniffing around his outside. Halberton has pulled ahead, and Gonzaga as well sniffing around the outside. And Halberton somehow gets that Radical off the line and smokes Baba on the start. And as I said, Halberton nursing a mere 8.2 iRating is may be a handful for Baba here today. Baba, one of the faster drivers, but Halberton from a couple seasons ago was a monster, and we may be seeing a repeat performance by him here today.
Already a lot of drivers feeling quite racy very early on. We were riding on board with Marco Weaver going through turns 3 and 4 there, and he nearly rear-ended Dennis Kyriakopoulos right in front of him. That was really close to contact, especially on lap 1. These drivers have to realize, hey, don't get caught up in the red mist. We have a decent amount of time left to go in these races. It's not like an hour-long race or anything like that. However, you have a decent amount of laps to contend with and try and fight for positions. But right now, that was Andreas Friedrich that just went off going through the corkscrew. He's fighting to just keep that car in the top 5, which I believe he has dropped off, and now he's going off the road again. Moves that contact that he just made. I believe that was with, could be Braun that he made contact with, going through turn number 9. That was Rainy Curve that they just went through. We're going to take a look at a replay to see this very unfortunate series of events that just happened for Andreas Friedrich. You can see him farther up the road. This is Heinz Braun. I was looking to see who he made contact with, and yes, it was Braun. You can see there's Friedrich going for some rally action there into the corkscrew, and while he tries to get his bearing straight, here comes Braun. I think Friedrich, I think that was just two drivers fighting for the same piece of real estate on lap 1, and just sadly they just came to blows.
Yeah, Friedrich, unfortunate for him, a very fast driver, but he does sometimes overdrive these radicals. You saw him take the long cut there and get that slowdown coming over the corkscrew, and sometimes when you have an off like that, that little shot of adrenaline wants you to make something happen as soon as possible, and he turned into his competitor Braun there. Whoa! And a nice little wiggle there coming out of turn 5 going up the hill, and takes some very quick reflexes to handle these radicals once they get loose in the rear. And looks like we've got some passing going on up the hill there, the only place on the track where these radicals feel a little bit slow, and not that slow at that.
That was a fantastic save there from Kettle Larson. That was coming through turn number 5, which was a corner. I think that corner has caught me on every single car I've ever driven around this track. That's Marco Weaver moving up to P4, getting a job done there on Dennis Kyriakopoulos heading into the final corner. But right now, Franco Sanchez is trying to look for a way to get past the both of them as Kyriakopoulos and Weaver going side by side. There's Sanchez down the inside, trying to make it 3 wide. They're very close to contact as they go into the Andretti hairpin. However, Sanchez is going to get the move done there on Weaver, who's now fallen into the crutches of Braun right behind. They're going side by side, nearly going side by side, coming into turn number 3. That was a lot of shuffling there, and 4 drivers you can all cover with one single blanket there. So far, a fairly clean start, knowing my luck, I probably just jinxed it. Right now, the only 2 casualties from this race are Cadora and Garrett, so I believe Garrett did not actually take the start of the race, and Cadora is already 2 laps down. I believe he was in the pits very, very early on, so I don't think he took the start either. So far, fairly clean.
Yeah, and Weaver there somehow snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. He put the move on Kyriakopoulos, and Kyriakopoulos beat him down the straight, took him on the inside going into the Andretti hairpin, and Sanchez followed him through. So Weaver losing 2 positions after gaining 1 there on the backside of the course. So Weaver got his work cut out for him, although he is up 1 position from his qualifying position, currently running in 6th out of 7th, and there's a turn there. Is that Sanchez going off?
That is.
Wow, and Sanchez, after making something happen right here on the last lap, applying a little bit too much throttle there in turn 11. You have to be judicious in your throttle application in these radicals or in those low-speed corners, or they'll spin up the rear. And here comes Sanchez. He wants that first place back that he lost immediately, and he is going to get that done on the inside of the Andretti hairpin. And Sanchez has now fallen all the way back to P12. Which is a loss of, 6-7 positions there. He had been up in that fight with Weaver and Kyriakopoulos, and now way in the basement.
You brought up a very good point there, JR, about these drivers trying to get on the throttle. Driving these cars, you have to press that throttle pedal as if you have an egg right underneath it. It's very tricky and very easy to spin up the rear tires on corner exit, but I don't think that's what happened there with Sanchez. I think he just overcooked it. Heading into the final turn, I'm not sure if we'd be able to get a replay of that here in the not-too-distant future. Right now, Baba and Friedrich are, Baba and Halliburton are quite close. This is Friedrich having his off earlier on, and actually, I believe there's another off here. This is going through the corkscrew. Ooh, yeah, he had a big snap there and another big snap. Exiting the corner, goes for a spin. That was Samir Kadora that he was right behind, who has now rejoined the race, albeit multiple laps down. This is Sanchez going for the spin into the final corner, and I think he just overcooked it here. Locked up a little bit, and yeah, just lost it mid-corner. It's very easy to do with these radicals, which aren't the easiest to drive in the world. There are definitely cars that can bite if you get a little bit wrong. I think one driver that might have gone wrong is actually Andres Marin, who's lost a spot on Iani to drop down to P8 in this race. So drivers already having a little bit of shuffling here. And one thing I was about to mention, right as I said that that we had a fairly clean start, that's Agnolan there in P number 15, has actually had some sort of incident, is currently in the pits, and I believe is out of the race. So right as I was saying that drivers were having a very clean start, we already have one of our first casualties from this race.
Yeah, and riding along now with Marin, looking forward to Iani. Iani having a drive here. He's moved up 5 positions, including that nice pass we saw into the hairpin. So he's our hard charger currently, and looks like he's got about a 2-second gap ahead to Braun. With 13 laps remaining, I guess it's possible for him to shut that down. And meanwhile, just look at that timing tower, folks, up front. As we were discussing, Halliburton and Baba have driven away. They are nose to tail, and the two of them are, gosh, 4 whole seconds ahead of James Berry. So this is going to turn into a 2-man fight between these two, and Baba likely to bide his time and just stick with Halliburton and plan some kind of move at the end. Ron, what do you think?
Ooh, it always depends what kind of strategies these drivers want to go for. Tire management is a big part of these races. We've been that dead horse many times of the broadcast of this series, but it just plays a big role season after season. These two are some of the best that the Radical community has to offer. Baba was basically in Radical retirement throughout most of Season 1 of 2024. However, midway through the season, people were seeing the dominance that I believe it was Daniel Lamba had throughout all of Season 1 of 2024, and they brought Baba back. They're like, hey, please come out here. We want to see some sort of challenge. We want this guy to start shaking in his boots a little bit. And then they brought back Kane Halliburton. He's kind of come out of Radical retirement as well. It was a few seasons ago, I think Season 2 or Season 3 of 2023. He was just a force to be reckoned with week in and week out. I believe it was Season 3, where he just dominated every single race and probably won about half the ones that we did of this Friday 2100 GMT broadcast. He won about half of them. So Kane Halliburton is a very fast driver. Aaron Baba is another very fast driver. This is going to be a battle of the tines as they're going tit for tat when it comes to what driver is being faster on a certain lap. Baba actually dropped back a little bit. The gap is now about 0.8 of a second. Didn't have the best run at the start of this lap. However, as I said, these two drivers very fast. Halliburton currently has the fastest lap of the race, and Baba not far behind. So I think these two are going to have a really good fight between now and the end of the race.
Yeah, and some fantastic camera work there by Josh, our producer, as you watch these two flog these radicals, taking every inch of the track. Look at him use all that exit, going up the hill out of turn 6, and just driving these radicals for everything that they are worth. These are absolutely two of the absolute best, absolutely, you might say, Radical drivers that we have seen in our seasons of covering this, and man, they are definitely putting on a show. Look at that gap back to Barry now, up to 5 seconds, and Baba just briefly got a little bit of the commentator's curse from Ron. That gap grew up to about 0.8, and now he's got Halliburton dialed back down to about 0.5, where it's been hovering for several laps here as those two drive away.
I feel like whenever I hype up a battle or what could be a battle, it always ends in tears for at least one of the drivers or just fizzles out. So let me try and do some reverse psychology here for this broadcast. I hope those two pull a 5-second gap between the two of them. See, that way we're going to have a nice fight between now and the end of this race. Lap 8 of 18 here. So we're not even at the halfway mark, less than 10 minutes into this. And we've already had a lot of shuffling. Andres Friedrich is one of the drivers that have fallen back like a rock the most. He's currently running in P13 after a series of spins. He's a driver that's always fast. He is wickedly fast in these radicals, but he just pushes it to the limit and sometimes pushes a little bit over the limit there, and we saw that in the early stages of this race. Thankfully, he's running at the back right now, currently the last of the cars on the lead lap, which is only 13 right now. However, he may try and get a position here on Hesterman in the not too distant future. Those two are separated by about 0.6 of a second currently. This is Marco Weaver really close to the back of Dennis Kyriakopoulos. Those two have been lockstep in a fight ever since we dropped the green flag here for this race. It's been feast or famine for a lot of these drivers. Some of them have had fantastic shows. Meanwhile, we've got Sanchez and Friedrich who have not had very good races thus far. Sanchez stood out as a star not very long ago here on Apex Racing TV with the Radical America series where he cleaned clock and actually took both of the wins that evening. He's currently running in P11, and that's a pretty hard fight right in front of him. That was Marin and Larson. They were going side by side coming through the final corner. Now Sanchez is looking to bite. He's going to be on the outside line heading into the Andretti hairpin. It's going to be a battle of the last late breakers. I believe Marin is going to hold off on that fight. Sanchez pulled a little bit of ahead. However, he just outbroke himself a little bit heading into the hairpin. Now he's going to be on the inside line trying to get a move done here. Don't hit that killer curb on the inside. Otherwise, you're going to be done for. Sanchez is still sticking out on the inside and gets the job done to move into P10. Pretty good lap from him. Pretty good battle from him as it still continues. They're going side by side heading into turn 5 here. Who's going to prevail in this fight? They make a little bit of contact mid-corner, but Sanchez still holding on in that fight.
Wow, great driving by both drivers there. You see him getting a little bit loosey-goosey there, coming around turn 5, about to head up the hill, and great persistence by Sanchez. He didn't really force anything, but he had his nose inside corner after corner after corner, and just wore Marin down there. But as you can see, this one not over. Marin is not going to let Sanchez off scot-free, and now he's sniffing around behind, and that gap is less than 2/10 here with a favorite passing zone coming up here, turn 3 at the end of the straightaway. So we'll see if Marin can get something going here. Wow, what a fantastic drive so far for both of these guys.
And speaking of both of these guys with a fantastic fight, this is Friedrich now going side by side. I believe that's with Hesterman, with Cadora in the tails. Of course, Cadora is a lapped car, but May got very close to making contact with Andres Friedrich when they went into turn 1. But Friedrich gets a move done to move into P12. Cadora, acting as a pick in this fight, got past Hesterman there, is now separating those two cars. He's acting like the meat in that sandwich, which does make sense because he does have a pink car. So I guess, I don't know, you can call him the ham in this fight. He's a ham in the ham and cheese fight of these drivers right now. So Cadora is acting as a bit of a pick in that number 12 car, down 2 laps, so he is hopelessly out of contention. However, he's a name that we see week in and week out on these broadcasts. Regardless of what lap he is on, he is always fighting, so I wouldn't be too shocked if he just doesn't let Hesterman by or even gives a challenge to Andres Friedrich to really get racy with him, even though they're on, well, not different laps. You got Cadora 2 laps down, Friedrich on that lead lap. I would not be shocked in the slightest if we see those two start to battle. But getting back to the point I was going to mention last lap, as we saw that fight between Hesterman and Cadora start to heat up, this is heating up between Halliburton and Baba. Baba, not very long ago, actually pipped Halliburton's claim as having the fastest lap of the race. I believe he set a 117.1, if I'm not mistaken. We may have to pull up that little bit of a graphic here because that was a pretty good lap there. Yeah, you can see 117.163 from Baba. So that's a pretty good lap from him. Not too far off Halliburton's fastest lap. However, you can see they're just miles ahead of everyone else when it comes to their fastest laps. These two continuing to pull away about a 7-second gap between themselves and Barry, currently running in the last podium position in a race of his own. These two separated by about a quarter of a second as they go into the corkscrew this time by.
Yeah, and some great cam work again there by Josh. You can see Baba with the outstanding car control, wheeling that Radical around. Holy cow. And if you're a GT3 driver, you know that 117.1 is fast around Laguna Seca, and unlike a GT3 car, no traction control, no ABS, and significantly less aero. So these guys are wheeling it, and they are wheeling it hard as we see Halliburton stretch that gap just a bit. It had been as low as 0.2, and it's creeping up now again on Baba, up to 0.6 now as they enter the Andretti hairpin. And we're on lap 12, so just a handful of laps left, and I'm still feeling that Baba is kind of targeting Halliburton, weighing his various options in terms of making that pass, and we're going to see something from Baba in the last lap.
I'm curious how these two cars are handling right now. Maybe Baba is just taking it easier, or maybe he's struggling a little bit, put a bit too much load on those tires as Halliburton goes for a little bit of rally action, coming out of 5 this time by, so that's not going to help his chances too much. I think he clipped the dirt again as they went through 6th there. So I wonder, we'll see Baba as he enters the corkscrew this time by. We'll see if he's sawing at the wheel. A little bit of correction, nothing major though. These radicals, as I said before, they're not very easy to drive. It's not a leisurely cruise. Try saying that 5 times fast when you're driving these radical SR10s. So I think Baba, the small little bit of sawing action that we see on the wheel, isn't nothing. It's not very indicating of him having an ill-handling race car at this stage. Has actually closed that gap this lap between himself and Kane Halliburton. But I think I've seen this from Baba so far in this race, 13 laps in now. He's not really getting the best of exits coming out of that final corner, coming out of turn number 11. So I think that could be what's hurting Baba, because turn 1, actually no, turn 2, the Andretti hairpin, is one of the best overtaking opportunities on this track, one of the easiest for sure. So I think Baba just having a bad exit coming out of 11 each time by could be the reason why Halliburton's still in the lead.
Yeah, interesting stuff, and of course only time will tell. And yeah, Josh reading my mind here, because look at Gonzaga, Larson, and Sanchez. Speaking of Ron's blanket analogy, those 3 cars are separated by about 4/10 here, and I'm not sure if they have done a lot of switching, but obviously involved in a very tight fight here, and it'll be interesting to see how this one unfolds. Look, we're with Gonzaga now, looking back at Larson and Sanchez is not shy wheeling that radical. So I'm sure that Larson is keeping an eye on the rear view, and you see Sanchez out in the dirt there on the exit of turn 6. He is beating that thing to death. And as Ron mentioned, tire management is a thing on these cars. You cannot flog them 10 tenths for 18 laps without blowing the tires off of them. So something that you definitely have to keep in mind in these, even though they're very short races relatively, is that the tires can go off.
Halliburton just stole the fastest lap of the race, 117.133, so that's a pretty good lap there from Kane Halliburton, over a half a second separating himself and Baba right now. The tire management stage of the race is gone. These drivers are just putting the maximum amount of load they possibly can. However, earlier on, if they didn't manage their tires too much, they are going to be in for a world of hurt in the final 4 laps of this race. Is Franco Sanchez looking to try and find any sort of way to get past these 2 right in front of him, still very close as they go into turn 3. About to enter turn 4 this time by. Sanchez has a pretty fast race car, and he's definitely a man on a mission. I mean, obviously he was running up towards the front as we see Kyriakopoulos battling still to move into P4 there. Actually, I believe he held off a challenge to stay in P4. That's a pretty good move, a pretty good defensive job from him, with Marco Weaver trying to find any way to get past heading into the corkscrew this time by. But all these drivers at this stage, it's a matter of who can have the tires to defend and who can have the tires to attack. Marco Weaver nearly gave Kyriakopoulos a bump and run going through the corkscrew. We'll see if Sanchez tries to pull off anything similar as they go through there. He does not, so he actually backs out of it a little bit. This is Marco Weaver trying to go for a move around the outside there. Meanwhile, Heinz Braun is sniffing around the 2 of them. He's closed up as they have dropped back like a rock with how hard they've been battling. So Marco Weaver in that slipstream. He's stuck behind Kyriakopoulos. He isn't anymore. He tries to move around the outside, heading into 1. Ooh, it's going to be very close between these 2. I don't believe Marco Weaver is going to be able to get it done. I thought that Heinz Braun was actually going to slip in there and push Marco Weaver out of the racing line and onto the outside and force him to drop back behind him. Actually, Heinz Braun drifted out a little bit mid-corner, so that didn't really help his chances too much. Meanwhile, Franco Sanchez still locked behind Kettle Larson and Jorge Gonzaga, who's the front car of this fight. Gonzaga acting as the front of the train, so to speak. He's currently running in 8th, and no cars really in front of him. him because the gap between himself and Ianni is about 5 seconds. So Jorge Gonzaga is just going to have to focus on the two cars right behind him who are definitely itching to get past.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, folks, and seeing these tight battles and these little trains forming up, cars switching position, all this side-by-side action, very typical of these Radical races. They are absolutely outstanding. So don't forget to hit subscribe to Apex Racing TV and hit that notification button so you don't miss any of the action. We have got not just Radicals, but we have got some of the best esports drivers, some of the best cars, and some of the best tracks on YouTube every day of the week. So this is just a taste of what you can see here on Apex Racing TV. And I think we had a little change of position there. That was looks like Casterman getting past Marin and Friedrich. There may have been some kerfuffleage there. That was a big change of positions. Ron, did you see what happened there?
Yeah, it was Heinz Braun getting past Kyriakopoulos, who's actually dropped behind Ianni. So Kyriakopoulos, who was running fourth not very long ago, has dropped back like a rock as of late. Well, he's actually currently running in fourth as we're taking a look at this replay. Marco Weaver goes for the move on him, heading into the second to last corner. That dropped him back a little bit. I was curious if Kyriakopoulos just picked up a slowdown, but no, he was stuck on the outside there and just, ooh, yeah, you can see him pull to the inside. I don't think that was just him having a slowdown. I think he was just slow on corner exit and tried to defend the inside from Heinz Braun, who's now running in P5. Meanwhile, Sanchez is pouncing here. He's going side by side with Kettle Larson. Larson's going at that inside line there. Very close the two of them are as they go into the corkscrew. Franco Sanchez has a very fast race car and has the will to get back into the top 8 here, but it's just not happening as we enter the dying stages of this race. About 2 laps to go. Anything can happen. It is a world of racing after all, but Franco Sanchez is running out of time. That would not be the best result for him, who is looking to try and grab a top 5 or even a podium in this race. Sadly for him, it has gone horribly wrong after that spin coming through the final corner about 5 laps into this race. So currently he's trying to get away, trying to find a way to get past Kettle Larson going around the outside. I don't think that'll work. Once again, we've seen probably about 10 or 15 drivers go try and go around the outside so far in this race. It just doesn't work, but Sanchez goes for the move of a lifetime on Larson. It caught me by surprise. It caught all of us out by surprise. It certainly caught out Larson by surprise as he's now dropped back behind, as now Sanchez is looking to try and get past Gonzaga heading into turn number 5, going around the outside, making contact. The two of them are as they go through the corner. Sanchez at this point is throwing caution to the wind. I thought he was going to try and go for a move and go side by side coming through 6. That's not going to happen under the best of circumstances. However, Franco Sanchez proving that he is one heck of a race car driver right now, trying to find any way to get past these two and move into the top 8. They've taken the white flag, and Kane Halliburton has about a half a second gap between himself and Baba. We'll see if that battle heats up between now and the end of this race in about a lap's time. But we've got battles all up and down the field.
Yeah, this is nuts, man. Fiesta time for Sanchez as he has lit the wick. And I think Larson might have had just a little bit of wiggle under power, and a tiny mistake is all it took to open the door for Sanchez. And he was sniffing hard on Gonzaga. I thought he was going to make that move happen in turn 6. And yeah, they keep trying this outside move into Andretti hairpin, and I don't think we've seen that pan out yet in this one, but that's not going to stop him from trying as we're riding along with Sanchez now, sniffing around behind Gonzaga. Oh, a nice catch there. Oh my goodness. We are on the white flag lap, folks. Sanchez knows that this is his last chance, and he is going after that P8 that currently held by Gonzaga like it is P1. Holy cow, great driving by all these guys.
That was some sawing at the wheel, pawing at the wheel, whatever you want to call it. That was awesome there from Sanchez as he came out of turn 3. He's going to have a great run coming down onto the right haul straightaway before they go into the corkscrew. If he wants to have any sort of hope or prayer of getting past Gonzaga, he's trying to look for the move around the outside. Meanwhile, Halliburton has taken the win, and Baba finishes in P2. Halliburton takes the fastest lap of the race as well on that last lap. So those two, once again, class of the field, finishing about 13 seconds in front of Barry, who's going to take P3. Meanwhile, while Jorge Gonzaga is driving off into the distance in P number 8. Franco Sanchez just not close enough to get the move done as it go around the final corner. It's not the result that he was looking for. However, after the major setback he had coming around that final corner not very long ago, Franco Sanchez won't be too upset to see the checkered flag in P9. So very dramatic end to that race, as we've got some twin burnouts here from Kane Halliburton and Baba. That is some nice stuff as they go into turn number 3 here. So just laying down some marks. I'm sure these the crabby neighbors around Laguna Seca will not like these two burning down their Radical SR10s after the checkered flag, but hey, we're racers, they aren't, so screw them, I guess.
Yeah, and when you move in next to a track that's been there for 70 years, I say you're taking your chances, and there's just a little friendly smooch there between those two SR10s.
Like some kind of meeting session. That was bizarre.
Oh, easy, Ron. This is a family program. So, and Halliburton and Baba there just showing hopefully what we're going to see for the entire season. They're so evenly matched. They ran 5 tenths or less apart from each other for the entire race. And really, Ron, it was Halliburton's move off the start that put him ahead of Baba permanently for the whole race, and there was nothing that Halliburton could do about it. And James Berry, in the meanwhile, gets a track day out of this. But Halliburton and Baba drive away from him to the tune of 13 seconds, and he in turn drives away from Marco Weaver with a 9-second gap behind. So Berry just having a nice little spin through the California wine country, and oh my goodness, what a race, and really hope it portends for good things in the future. Wow, what fantastic. And we'll have these results up for you here, folks, in just a moment.
That was a great race indeed. That was awesome to watch from start to finish. Great battling. It's unfortunate that we didn't see a battle up towards the front. However, that was still awesome to watch.
Yeah, and here are our results. Kane Halliburton making that move off of the start into turn 3. The Andretti hairpin gets it past Baba and holds that lead for the race. So it's Halliburton from Baba from Berry will be your top 3. Marco Weaver, Braun, Kiriakopoulos, Myron Ianni, Jorge Gonzaga. Hard battling Franco Sanchez will finish in P9, which is down 3, unfortunately, from his qualifying, but he certainly showed that he had fight left in him throughout the entirety of that one, even fighting back from mistakes. Gettel Larson will round out the top 10. Then it's Friedrich, Hesterman, Marin, Samir Kadura, Anilon, and Guritz does not look like he took the start. So there is your grid, and man, what a fantastic show. And as I went through before, we have so many great tracks ahead of time, so many great tracks on the schedule. It is going to be a fantastic season here for these Radicals, and I'm going to take a real quick peek here in the waiting room and see if I see anyone. Yeah, looks like Jorge Gonzaga is here. So let me just grab him by the collar and bring him in. And Ron, you can give him the business about his drive today.
Alrighty, sounds like a plan. Thank you for joining us, Jorge Gonzaga, here in the commentary booth. Just talk us through the race that we saw here tonight.
Oh, it was an amazing race. Well, I don't know how much it went on further ahead on the field, but I need to take the hats off to Gettel and Franco. That was an amazing race from the both of them. And I can honestly say this was one of the hardest races I've ever done in iRacing. Yeah.
Well, from our perspective, we were keeping our eyes peeled on that fight between you three throughout that race. It was a tale of 3 racers, you could say, because you had Sanchez, who had that mistake earlier on and was probably running a little bit ticked off after what happened earlier, and then you had you kind of running a race of your own, and with Larson trying to find a way to get past you. Unfortunately, he got passed by Sanchez there. So can you just talk us through that fight that you had between those 3?
Yeah, that's the thing. They had way more pace than I did, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna try to defend, and I got confident, and I said, let's go for it, and I tried to defend for my life, and yeah, it got to lap 12 or something. I was like, is this race not gonna end? And I was so tired, so sweaty. But yeah, they're amazing drivers, and to be able to defend, I have no idea how I was able to pull that off. So hats off to them.
Well, I will say one thing that might have helped your defensive strategy when it came to this race is the fact that here at Laguna Seca, there aren't a whole lot of overtaking opportunities, certainly compared to tracks like Spa, where it's a total slipstream fest. So do you think the reason why you were able to hold off onto that position was just because Laguna Seca is a track that's a little bit harder to overtake at?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's good that we have these tracks that don't rely so much on draft. Although draft also has its fun strategy part of it, right? Because it's always interesting to be able to play that. But having tracks like this, there are still a couple of key places where overtakes can happen. But it's trying to protect that inside line before the first hairpin. And then sorry, I don't know the names of the corners, but there's a couple strategic places that if we can place our car very well and keep our line and defending, prevent them to gain an advantage on a breaking point, I think it's possible. And that's what's happened. Kjetil and Franco, they're way faster than me. And if you see the lap times, they were on 17s and my best was an 18, so clearly I was out of my league. And I think that's it. It's easy to defend tracks like this, like Colton and some others, and this is what makes it interesting. It's not just about getting into the straight full throttle and just use the draft to overtake. It's good it's fun to have these tracks where skills come to play. Yeah.
You mentioned some of the other tracks where it's a bit more challenging and you don't have that slipstream fest that you see at some of the other quicker tracks that we see in these radicals. And just talking about the schedule that we have coming up for the season, Rudskogen next week, and then we also have Nordschleife that I'm really looking forward to. I'm sure you drivers aren't, but I am as a commentator for week 11. That's going to be a pretty good race to see here on Apex Racing TV. So just going through the schedule that we have here for season 2, what's a race that you're looking forward to the most?
Well, actually, I was doing a bit of testing in Rudskogen, and I love that track. And again, it's another one of these where there's really only one straight, so even the draft is not fast enough. The car cannot go fast enough for draft to take effect. So I'm actually really looking forward to Rudskogen. I'm not going to participate in Nürburgring. Sorry, it's a tradition of mine. I objectively reject. Maybe I'll try to do a race just to get some points, but it's a decision morale for me not to play on that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward for next week. It's going to be really interesting. It's a really technical track. You really need to have a lot of finesse, especially on that downhill, finesse on the brake on that downhill section. It's amazing track. I love it, and it's bad that it doesn't get as much attention. But it's good that we cycle through these tracks from time to time.
That's going to be a real interesting race in 1 week's time. In my year covering the Radicals, we haven't actually visited Rudskogen yet, so hopefully it'll be a good race in 1 week's time. Jorge Gonzaga, thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, it's first time in the year. I feel a lot of people. So first of all, for you guys, welcome back. It's a pleasure to have you guys on board again for another season. Really excited for it. To Kjetil and Franco sorry, I think it's more sorry for them for stealing their place, and to my teammates Andreas, James Barry, and Marignani. They're great teammates, and it's been really fun to race with these guys in the upcoming season, and yeah, it's really exciting.
I'll tell you what, I think my thanks go out to you for your insight that you always bring here into the commentary booth. Us as professional ladmass, we can't really bring that driver's perspective. However, you always bring in the interviews that we have with you here after these races. So Jorge Gonzaga, thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. Hope to see you next time at Rudskogen.
Yep, okay, see you guys. Thank you.
All right, that was Jorge Gonzaga, who you saw engaged in an intense battle for most of that one, in a pack of cars that followed each other around the track in 0.1, 0.2 increments, and what a fantastic show that they put on. So as we wind it down here, folks, I don't like to make this about us. It's about the competitors and about the on-track action, but I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge my colleague Ron Mons. We are bringing in our other colleague Tom Dillon to take Ron's place going forward here on the Radical Esports Cup. But I got to say that I have absolutely loved every race that we have called together, Ron. We've kind of learned together, I think, coming up here in these Radicals, and the three of us have made a fantastic team, and it really has been a pleasure. And folks, Ron has a very busy schedule here on Apex Racing TV. He calls the Radical Series Championship, North American and European Championships on the weekend, among other things. So he's not going anywhere. He still has a full plate here on the channel, but he will not be with us on these 2100 GMT broadcasts. So thank you again, Ron. It has been an absolute pleasure. A pleasure.
Well, I think likewise, it has been a pleasure to be a part of this series. This series, back when it was called the Radical Racing Challenge, was actually the first one I ever commentated. I didn't do any commentating before I joined Apex Racing TV back in March of 2023. I was a dumb high school student that I really didn't know what I was talking about. Now, about a year later, I'm still dumb, but I kind of sound like I know what I'm talking about nowadays. And JR, we've been doing this series together since season 3 of 2023, so I can say likewise it has been a privilege to commentate all these Radical races. At this point, it's probably about, I would say probably about 36 or 37 that we've done together, and as JR said, I will not be going anywhere. You'll still be hearing me on Apex Racing TV. You'll be hearing me from the Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship coming up here on Apex Racing TV later on this week, actually tomorrow. So again, another reason to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well, because we've got great racing all around the clock. I decided that I wasn't going to do a like heartfelt kind of ending and say like, oh yeah, the series has meant a lot to me, and break out the tears and have to dry my tears with some napkins or anything like that. So I decided to give some very useless advice at the end of my, well, not final Radical broadcast. I'll still be doing the Americas series. I want to say that if anyone needs to use a bathroom at the Chipotle Mexican Grill at 1209 North Charles Street in Baltimore, Maryland, an employee gave me the PIN code for that bathroom over the past weekend, and it's actually 2580. So if you ever need to use that bathroom, yeah, just hit that PIN code. This is probably the worst way I could have wrapped up this this bit of me talking about these Radicals, but oh well, it's me, so I'll leave my mark in my very unique and possibly concerning therapy-riddled way.
All right. Well, thank you, Ron. And my goodness, it's hard to follow the Baltimore potty code. But coming up on Apex Racing TV this weekend, we have 2 great esports events: Weekend Warriors SRF and Formula Ford competing at Summit Point. And a little bird tells me that if you tune into the SRF race, you might see our own Joshua Wilkie out there breaking plastic and going in the grass there at Summit Point. And Monday, the Rick Tech touring cars will attack Sebring. Will it rain? Will it be sunny? Tune in and see. And again, thank you so much to Ron Mons, and for myself, JR Gregory, Ron Mons, and our producer Joshua Wilkie. Thank you so much for joining us for our presentation of the Radical Esports Cup. Happy Friday, and have a fantastic weekend.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.